Go. Well, welcome everyone to our 2021. I don't know how many times I've messed up the date already. It's 7 days in. 2021, our first meeting of 2021. Congratulations, we made it here. So first off, a quick little, agenda for the day. We are going to be talking to Dustin here, Homebrewer of the Year. I don't know how we're measuring the years, if it's March 2019 to 2020, or the Homebrewer of the Year for the year of 2019 or 2020. It's kind of tough. I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Someone knows.
No,
I think it's whatever year is put next to the person's name on the sash. That's how we keep track of it. Which, thank you for sending that back, Dustin. I'll let you know when it gets here.
Heck yeah, cool.
I appreciate that. Okay, so back to it. Agenda, we're going to be talking with Dustin about recipe creation. I'll give a quick little lowdown about, my philosophy and, the general philosophy that some of the more renowned homebrewers kind of espouse. And then we'll talk to Dustin about, his philosophy behind it. And do you want to talk about the recipe, aspect of it before or after we pop the beer? He's shaking his head no, but his lips are moving. Dustin.
You're on mute, Dustin.
Oh, dang it. No, I was saying that it doesn't matter to me if anyone wants to pop them open anytime. Go for it. It's beer.
Okay.
It's for the drinking.
All right. So I'll say, pop them beers, and I'm hoping that we can taste along with Dustin as he's talking about it. What else? Let's see. Ah, dang it. I closed it. Sorry. I have happy fingers when I'm trying to do things. Where did it go? I apologize. I've got too many things open right now.
While you're looking, I have a proposal to add to the agenda if there's time.
Yeah, of course.
When the time comes, I'd like to make a proposal about the club making a donation.
Sure. Yeah. So here, I'll hit the agenda punch list. So Hans, you ready? Agenda items is going to be Dustin Keeler after I give a quick little talk about, general recipe formulation. We'll do the taste test, talk about the fermented under COVID conditions beer. We will talk about Pete's proposal for donation. Let's see, future meetings, happy hour, and within future meetings, we're going to be talking about Iron Brewer, Homebrewer of the Year, 5H, or lack thereof, All right. You got that, Hans?
No, for the future meetings, what are we going to cover?
For future meetings, we're going to cover Iron Brewer, Homebrewer of the Year, and 5H. And yeah, I think that's what I said. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Good to go? Good to go. Okay. I am going to mute my phone. Hopefully none of the club members try to get in and then text me. All right. Cool. Well, 2021. Let's make this our year. Heck yeah, everyone. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone who's shown up. This is the largest digital club meeting we've had since the start. So I got to say bravo and congratulations. What got the people we don't see frequently in here? Mike, what got your butt in here? Did you just like see a post that you don't normally see?
Well, kind of just realizing how long it had been since the last meeting I was in, just because I've been having something else recurring on Thursdays, and then also, new year, decide, hey, all right, got to come back to club meetings again.
Woohoo! Awesome. What about you, Drew? Long time no see. What kicked you in the butt to get in here?
We're all going COVID crazy, man.
Ah, don't you know it, man? I understand that.
Yeah, so miss the whole camaraderie and everything, and it's been a really rough 2020 for a lot of people, including ourselves, and
Sure.
just trying to just see into a good future, because this is just absolute mayhem that's going on these days. So,
Yeah, agreed. Well,
so
I can cheers to that.
Yeah, so just hunker down and brew beer. That's really, that's only, thank goodness for that, because it's what I got. I made a lot of cider too. So
Nice.
it's been an interesting 2020, to say the least. But
yeah,
good to see you all. I wish you all the best and good 2021.
Good to see you, Drew. Nancy, good to see you again. Dustin, good to see you again. Palvi, good to see you again. Good to see everyone. Kenny, Caitlin.
Are we taking roll? Do we have a secretary involved right now that's taking attendance or like writing down who's here?
I'm doing that now.
Okay, thank you so much, Hans. Just double checking.
Oh heck yeah! And this video, this meeting is recorded. All right.
I just realized it's hands off the secretary.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Well, let's get talking about, recipe formulation and generally, what people's philosophies are behind it. Whether you've been brewing for like 10 years or whether this is your first year brewing, this is, in my opinion, one of the more difficult and one of the more scrutinized pieces of homebrewing. I can't tell you how many hours and hours sometimes I'll be going through a recipe going, oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh, I want to change this, or looking over, 10 to 15 different recipes of similar styles and kind of scrutinizing those. Just out of curiosity, as a raise of hands, who has, designed their own recipe, where you feel like you have done enough tweaking to a base recipe that you feel like you have some kind of ownership over the makeup of that recipe? Just out of curiosity, like who feels that ownership over a recipe? This is all personal philosophy too, like if you change a base malt, I feel like changing a base malt and changing something else, that's changing a recipe. But to each their own. And I have to say that's pretty good for most of us in here. It's kind of like, creating music. Are there any new songs? Are there any new notes? Probably not. But it's how we put them together and how we take ownership of it that really, gives us that sense of ownership. Whether it's legally ownership or not, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. As long as you don't call it the same name and try to sell it.
I guess to me, what I feel like gives me ownership of something is whether I made it or not. Someone else could make the exact same recipe, and they'll have ownership of that because they made that one. But if I made it, then that one's mine. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Even with all the same exact recipes, your beer is going to come out different than someone else's. So whether it's the process or the recipe itself, I feel like processes are definitely a huge a huge component of homebrewing, but the recipes, is kind of one of those first dips into homebrewing when you finally feel like you have your process down and you're like, finally, I'm going to create, at least for myself. So one of the big things that I wanted to talk about is not necessarily like what goes into creating a recipe, but the building blocks of our recipes, you know, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a recipe? You know, what piece of that recipe? Malt, in my opinion. Malt is like first and foremost. For Mike, it might not be malt, it'll be the varietal of apples. You know? Yeah, go ahead, Kenny.
Sorry, I'm still learning how to use this. I would say style would
Style,
be,
yeah.
you know, like what do you want to make? And then also understanding what ingredients are needed for that style, but also what you have on hand or what you have access to. So you could go into formulating a recipe thinking you're going to make a Belgian wheat stout and then realize, oh, hell, I don't have any wheat.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I'm
agree.
making something else then.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about homebrewers is like, if you think about where some of us have started, it's well, I got a kit and I'm going to put this kit together and make beer. Or some of us, oh, I'm moving out of town, here's my entire setup and here's all the grains that I have. So you look at the grains and you go, well, I can maybe make this, but it does harken back to style. Or, you know, what do you feel like drinking? Because I guarantee you, we've all brewed something that does not fit into a style guideline. Pete. So one of the big things that I wanted to show you is a graphic that I really like. And I don't know if any of if most of you know this, but Randy Mosher, who wrote Mastering Homebrew and, you know, Radical Homebrewing, he by trade is actually a graphic designer. So Randy Mosher made this graphic that, in my opinion, boils down all of the malt ingredients into different malt groups. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I hope that you can see it. I have pulled this from a, give me just one second. I've pulled it from a slideshow by Brad Smith of Beersmith. So let me share my screen with you. All right, can you guys see it? This round graph we've got here. Cool. So I really like this graphic because not only is Randy Mosher, you know, like a kind of a mad scientist for homebrewing, but he tried to boil down all of the different malt groups, all of the malts that we typically use into different things.
That's fine.
So let me explain this this wheel here. This is the color, the lava bond of each of the malts, and it's on a scale that's round instead of flat. And within each shell, he goes by different types of malt. So the outside is the base malt. The inside is the kilned malt, I mean the caramels. And then in the middle is like base malt, color, kilned malt, and roast malt. But I really like it because it shows you the different groups that, you know, kind of play the part of recipe design, for malts at least. And I think for the most part, I'm going to be talking mostly about malts. I promise, only like 3 more minutes and then I'm done talking. But the malt groups for base malts are kind of where most people kind of take for granted what the base malt is, because for a lot of people, 2-row is just like what they use, you know, like that's just, it's just how you start a beer. You start with 2-row. Or the people who, you know, want to really brew English styles, oh, I want to use Maris Otter. So those are all just the round, the furthest out base malts. But where I feel like a lot of homebrewers start to, you know, change their recipes is in the caramel and crystal malts, as well as the roast and black malts. And Brad Smith said that there's a harsh zone in here. There's a harsh zone. It's between 70 and 180 Lovibond that the maltsters don't usually like to produce malts in those ranges because they give you strange flavors like burnt toast, burnt marshmallow, those kinds of strange flavors that you can't quite pin down, but are acceptable in the crystal territory because they're more sweet, and usually they add less to beer in terms of sheer volume than your base malts do. Anyway, I just wanted to share this really quick graphic because I love this graphic, and I will frequently look at it when I'm trying to assess, where I want to pull from. Most of the time I'll do a base malt, a caramel, and maybe one of these over here just for color. But anyway, that's the end of my rant, the end of my talking about this. Ben, you've got a question.
That was me clapping.
Oh, cool.
Sorry.
Well, anyway, so in general, recipes are
That was
really
great.
personal to people. What?
I said that was great. I
Oh,
really
thanks.
liked that.
All of this is available. This Brad Smith presentation, all about recipe formulation, which is a great presentation. It's an hour long. I've watched it a few years ago. It's all on the American Homebrewer Association website. If you are a member of the Homebrewers Association, you have access to all of the previous year's seminars at HomebrewCon, and they are ripe with information. And you can put one in the background and not have to think about it. Oh, sweet. Matt even posted a link to the harsh zone. I think that's
pretty low res.
Oh yeah, there we go. There's the graphic that I just showed you. That's awesome. Thanks, Matt. Well, talking about design of recipes, shall we? Dustin, are you ready to talk about your beer?
Yeah, definitely. I take it there's the Belgian Imperial Stout, and there's it's a brewery called Abnormal, and it's their adjunct stout recipe. So the Belgian Imperial, I believe, is BI, and the Abnormal chocolate stout is AC. So I imagine, I think
AC.
it's a mix of it
What
that
should we
people
open
have.
first?
Yeah, Hans, do you, just out of curiosity, does anyone not have a BI on their cap that they got from Hans? Ben, what did you get?
Oh, I got a BI. I'm about a third of the way through it right now, so hopefully we don't
Nice.
switch.
What about you, Caitlin and Kenny?
We got one of each. We're just trying to figure out what one we're supposed to open.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
good.
They're both pretty similar. They're both big imperial stouts. They're both rocking about 10.5%. I would probably go with the Belgian before I got to the adjunct, just because
Cool,
that's
look what I
usually
just
the way I
said.
go. But yeah.
Cool, that's the one I just popped too. All right. Well, Dustin, tell us how you even got a case of beer down here for us to share. Teleportation?
I had a friend. It was an old neighbor of mine was up visiting from Humboldt, and I sent her back with like 6 or 7 cases of beer for people I knew in the club and stuff. It was a pretty awesome opportunity to be able to share and send beer to old friends.
Just to be clear, we did not get 6 cases. I want everyone to know I did not drink 5 cases of beer. Well, so cheers, Dustin, for getting enough bottles to us and being generous and with the foresight to do this. Cheers.
Heck yeah, cheers to everyone. Yeah, yeah. The Belgian Imperial is, let's see, I got the little printout in front of me. Yeah, yeah, yep. 10% almost right on. Maybe actually, I think the one that I probably count like 9.7. I think I finished a little higher on the gravity, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah, if you don't mind, would you mind telling us like what the recipe is so we can pick it apart from there?
Totally.
Wait a minute,
So
time out.
the
Wait, okay, can I ask you a couple of questions? Where do you live? In Portland?
right now I live outside of Portland in Hillsborough.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious. And so were you the brewer of the year in Oregon or for the
Here for the
American
Humboldt Homebrewers?
He was here and he was so active and produced some of the best beers that we've had in this county. So I do appreciate you and thank you so much for giving us your education and experience while you were here. And I'm bummed that you're up there. You need to move back, obviously. Obviously.
So
Yeah,
I was just kind of interested in, just kind of your bio,
No, totally. Yeah. I like, I was really happy I won Homebrewer of the Year. And then I had almost just within the last week of that, I'd figured out I was going to be moving to Portland. And so, I got to, be in the club for most of the year and then won the award and then had to flee town to Portland. It was nice. We just came up here because we love Oregon. We love coming to the Portland area on vacation and stuff. It's just pretty and lots to do.
Yeah.
Or I apologize, there was lots to do.
There's a lot of good beer in Oregon too.
And Dustin, just as a basis, you had started brewing the same year that you joined the Humboldt Homebrewers, correct? Which was a year ago.
Yeah, I had started in like December or something, and then it was within a year of me brewing, within 4 months or 5 months, I had joined the Homebrewers. Yeah.
And did you start doing all grain from the start? Or did you?
I did. I had I put I put a lot of time into kind of like getting my gear together. It was just a cheap setup from Northern Brewer before I figured out I was supporting the evil empire. But from the beginning I got an all grain setup that basically was good enough for me to produce I can do 10-gallon batches of regular strength 7% beers and just a cooler and a 15-gallon kettle and I did, well, I take it back, I did 2 extract brews to start, and then but I had already had all that equipment coming, but I just that was my I'll just try this because it seemed like I could mess it up less, and then after those 2 times I've been all grain.
Nice. So out of curiosity, do you know how many beers you've brewed so far off the top of your head, or how many times you've brewed?
I mean, for a long time in the beginning, I was brewing once a week. So I would say, and I do a lot of double batches and like party guile where I'll run a small beer off a big beer. So I haven't brewed over 100 times, but I've brewed over 100 beers in the last 2 years.
Dang,
that's awesome.
You're driven, man. That's awesome. Yeah, to be childless.
How big a batch do you brew at a time?
Generally speaking, 5 gallons. A lot of times, like my second beer, if I do a double batch, I'll run I'll get like a 3 off of it or something like that. But in general, about 5 gallons. Yeah.
Nice. Well, so just speaking back to like recipe formulation, when did you start or start feeling comfortable with tweaking recipes rather than just, the copy paste method, which still requires a lot of, a lot of effort. Don't take this as belittling anyone and how they brew, but when did you start, taking hold of those recipes and start, fine tuning them to be what you thought you wanted them to be? And what caused you
I
to
mean,
do that?
it was definitely, I was probably, there's the kind of like what Kenny was talking about. There's the like out of necessity, that it's like, oh, I got this and I got this and this, but I don't have this, stuff like that. I was doing from the beginning just based on necessity and what I got, what I could afford, and but it probably took me from, I started with kits, my first few, and that probably took me maybe 3 or 4 months of brewing before I would start doing what I would say would be like 50% my own recipe, where I'm starting from a base I found on Beer and Brewing or on, Brew Your Own or something, and then changing some stuff around, and pretty soon after that probably was willing to venture out and brew my own beers, which just, along with obviously reading a lot of other recipes and getting a lot of other.
Which beer that you started tweaking, first felt like yours, your baby? What was the beer that you thought was your baby?
Oh geez, I'd probably have to go through my, like, I keep a written journal and I keep a brewer's friend, but I probably have to go through the written journal and
Do you have any
see,
fond memories of one in specific? Not necessarily your first, but do you have one that you like really love and you still remember?
I would say just in general. Well, actually, I think the first beer that I brewed that was totally my own recipe was an imperial stout party guile, where I did a oatmeal stout off the back of it. But it was definitely stouts that really, big stouts in particular, that that got me really interested. Brewing a bunch of, not like low alcohol, but just normal, 5, 6, 7%ers. That was kind of a big deal for me, was trying to risk like, oh, I'm going to try to brew a 10% beer. That'll be exciting. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I still have yet to brew a 10% beer myself. To be so what strategies do you think you hold fast to for brewing something that's such high alcohol? Just because I feel like a lot of homebrewers who brew, this high of alcohol will kind of get burned by that alcohol burn. Like, how do you approach something like this without, going overboard in that aspect?
Well, as far as, like alcohol burn and fusels, I really try to start most of my big beers a few points below what the suggested bottom range is for the yeast. Even if I'm trying to, pitch something like a barley wine or imperial stout at like generally about like 60 degrees or something, and really try to hold it there until I start getting the first signs of fermentation, and then slowly ramping up. But just talking about like brewing big stouts in general, I have a few things that I usually do every time that I brew them. Like one of the things I think is really big is I reserve usually about 60 to 80, usually about 75 to 80% of the dark grains in the crystal malt. I hold that out of the mash until I'm all done with my infusion, and then like the last 10 minutes of infusion, I add the rest of the dark and the crystal, and that in general really helped my just my efficiency and stuff like that, because you don't have all the really dark grains really messing with your pH and screwing up your efficiency, and it also gives you helps with kind of the smoothness or like astringency you get from using a large amount of dark grain in beers. And yeah, also, especially with bigger stouts, it's the only thing. Stouts and beers with a lot of dark grain. The only time I use baking soda with my usual, like, a little bit of gypsum and calcium chloride. I add a little bit of baking soda, kind of for the same reason, to kind of like offset the the change in pH you get from the dark grains and the crystal grains.
So what is the baking soda and where do you add it? At what point in your brew process do you add baking soda? Because that just, it sounds, I've never heard that.
No, I do it in the mash, where like with the other like gypsum and stuff, I would just throw that in my strike water when I get that going. The baking soda I always add like directly to the mash as soon as I get all the grain in there.
Does it add a clarification to it? Like, does it make it more?
So
What is it?
just
What
to
does it
hop
really
in here,
do?
it adds alkalinity. So
Yeah.
alkalinity is essentially the ability of the pH to buffer. So if your acidity, it's a buffering capacity of your mash, essentially.
So why would you do that? Is my question. I've just never heard of this process before.
A lot of roast grains will
drop your pH.
What was that, Sean?
A lot of roast grains will drop your pH.
Ah, so you just want to bring it back up again. Okay.
And then it also, and I don't know how much this has to do with it. I'm not like super into water chemistry, but it also increases the amount of bicarbonates, and I think maybe that has something to do with the buffering capacity. Like
that was my initial thought, but thank you for clarifying further.
Yeah, but you're also adding like a decent amount of salt when you're adding baking soda, so it's definitely something you don't want to overdo.
And how does, like, I assume it affects the flavor, but I also know that if you add like a bicarbonate to something, it can bring out other flavors. Like, has there been tests that you've done, because you've brewed a lot? Is this something that you do with every brew that you make? And how does it affect different styles that you do if you add that little bit to the beginning versus somebody who wouldn't? Because I've never heard of this before.
No,
So,
I've only done it with dark beers, and usually like I've done it off and on with smaller dark beers like porters or dry stouts, but it's definitely something that I've done all the time with bigger dark beers and like imperials and stuff, just because I had the problem with a couple of my first like big dark beers where they came out kind of astringent and sharp, So I don't know. I don't know if it's that or other changes I've made, but like a lot of things like that worked, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Can I add something that I did? Somebody who was she was actually, I belonged to a brew club up in Bend, and this woman who was very good brewer. She was one of the brewers of the year, and she taught me this, and it seems to work. Hans, you can let me know. And I've never gotten above 8, by the way. But what I do is I cold soak my dark grains, and then I add them in the last 15 minutes of my boil. And it eliminates that astringency, and it seems to work for me, which doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody, but I wasn't doing that before, and it really made a difference.
Yes, it sounds like the same thing you do with cooking grains or beans. You cold soak them first to have them release their gases, which would probably be factors that a bicarbonate would cut out. So this has been a fascinating conversation. Like, you can also, you can cold soak them, or also if you don't have the time, just throw in a little bit of bicarbonate and.
Yeah, totally. No, I think the adding them in the last 10 minutes just before the Vorloff to the mash is it's similar to the cold water soak thing. It was another thing I read about at the same time, but I just started doing that first. But yeah, there's definitely, I think you get a lot of the same benefits from holding back the dark grain till the end of the mash that you would kind of like that, where you're just soaking it on the side. had that recommended before.
But I'm just I put it in the last 10 minutes of the boil. I don't even put it in the mash.
You don't
There's
even put it.
reason-
No,
there's-
no, that totally
After I
makes
boiled
sense.
it.
There is zero reason to put those dark grains in the mash. They're not going to contribute to your ABV, or they don't need to be mashed.
Would they add
Absolutely.
flavor then?
Yeah, Kenny, you've got something to add to that.
Number one, can somebody, there you are, Ben. Nice. It looked like you were asleep, man. I was going to say somebody wake Ben up, but it looks like he woke himself up. As a comment to the roasted grains, bitterness and whatnot, certain styles you actually kind of want that, especially in like a Irish dry stout or something. So really the idea is to kind of understand what the ingredients do, not just the grains themselves, but also the additions to the water, to your water additions as well, will absolutely affect these different flavor profiles. And that's something for me personally, I'm still trying to learn. I'm not huge on water modifications or anything like that. I've strictly pretty much just brewed with either a charcoal filtered tap water out of our fridge here at home, or a charcoal filtered version of Eureka tap water. It's only recently that I've kind of started to play around with some of the water chemicals. So for me personally, that's something that I could learn a little bit more about. And it's all about just experimentation and figuring out what works. And so it's really interesting to hear like Nancy's cold steep technique, or Dustin's, last 15-minute addition to the mash technique for these darker roasted grains. So it's really cool just to see what different people are doing and what works on different systems as well. Because what works on one person's system may not work on somebody else's. So it's really just trial and error and just try to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, agreed. Water is one of the more complex things in terms of, how it affects your beers, and what Dustin brought up with, sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. I encourage everyone to try dabbling in water, just a dash of what you think you might need, or, you think you might want. And a lot of these, so except for, in the mash, where your mash pH is going to be modified by your water chemistry heavily, I encourage you to mess around with brewing salts in your finished beer, because water, that is one of the most dense books ever. It is so difficult to read comprehensively. Like, I've fallen asleep to that book so many times.
Nobody touched it.
I opened it once and
Oh, I know. I was reading about cations and ions and how they interact in beer and bipolar forces. Oh, it's mind numbing. But anyway, let's get back to recipe formulation, and maybe we'll talk about water in a future science quick tip, because oh man, the water gets deep. All right, so let's get back to what we were talking about. So Dustin, we were talking about big beers and some of your strategies, to help dial in some of the fusels and ethyl alcohols. You said start at the lower temperature range of that yeast that you're using. That's a great strategy. How do you balance the high alcohol to the body of the beer? Can you talk about a little bit about, what went into your thoughts for like creating the body for this beer?
I guess, I don't know. I guess when you say body, I think malts. I think base malts. I think
for sure.
I think Munich. I think
Yeah, actually, we never even got to the recipe part of this whole thing. Tell us what your recipe is, man.
Okay,
Give us the recipe.
Do you want me to just go through the recipe real quick? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I would love to.
Okay, the recipe for the Belgian Imperial Stout I should have, in a perfect world, I would have just done 18 pounds of Maris Otter, but I did half Maris Otter and half two row. I don't know, in general, I think so many Belgian styles, you really should be using Belgian malts, you know, but to me, when you get into Belgian stouts, I'm more looking for this like bone crushing malt character. Like I just want this like big malt flavor, you know, and so to me, it definitely makes me think English based malts, you know, but yeah. So yeah, 9 pounds Maris Otter, 9 pounds two row, 4 pounds Munich Light,
Wait,
1 pound Munich Dark.
So you had the base malt, you had the base malt of half two row, half Maris Otter, and then what was after that?
4 pounds of light Munich.
Okay.
And then 1 pound of dark Munich.
1 pound of dark. And this is a 10-gallon batch or a 5-gallon batch?
This is a 5-gallon batch.
Yeah.
I was in the beginning. I was not getting very good efficiency.
All right, keep going.
Okay. As far as you're talking about body, I do a pound and a half of flaked barley. Sometimes I would do wheat, or yeah, just like Sean just wrote, you know, higher mash temps are a big part of having, you know, a big chewy malty body. I did a pound of Special B and a half pound of Chateau Monastique. I think that's how you say it.
What is that?
It's the Belgian aromatic malt. It's something you definitely want to use in really small amounts. It just, to me, it really increases the malt character of a beer, but it can be like, if you went to like a pound or 2 pounds of it, I think it would be like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And let's see, for the roast grain, for the dark malts, I did a pound of chocolate and 3/4 pound of roast barley.
Hey, Dustin, would you be willing to share that in the chat for everyone?
Like
I got it.
You got it?
I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
You said 3/4 of roasted barley?
3/4 pound of roast barley. Yeah.
Dang. Okay. So is that all the malt for this?
Yeah, that's everything.
Okay. So just to, you know,
I would hope
lump
so.
these things together. So just for your color, you did chocolate and roast barley. Some of the Munich, like dark Munich, will definitely adjust your color. But, you know, other than that, Special B is, I think, like 30 Lava Bond area tops. So a pound of chocolate and 3/4 roast barley. I am surprised pleasantly that, you know, that, in my opinion, small amount of roasted grains, you know, gives you this, you know, good roasty character.
Yeah, in general, I would probably now be I go a little heavier on the roasted grains for sure.
Nice. What's your favorite roasted grain increase? Like if you were to change this recipe, what would you change to go up? Your chocolate or your roast barley? Or would you diversify and throw in another type of roast grain?
I use black malt for a lot of stuff now. I was kind of scared of it in the beginning, but I really love the character of black malt. Yeah. And I'm definitely not shy using all three of those together, but a lot of times I'll do dark beers now with just black malt.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I used black malt more in the past, but it's been a while.
Yeah. So what is the poundage? Do you think you would use less roasted malts if you use just your black malt instead of the chocolate and the roasted barley?
Yeah, I believe so. And like Lava Bond wise, like I think I use English black malt, and Lava Bond wise, you're talking like 500, 550.
Nice. Dang.
So I would probably like, if the recipe, I probably would do 1.5 pounds or something if I was just gonna go straight black malt.
That's ballsy if I say so myself. I'm so curious. Yeah, go ahead, Kenny.
I wanted to mention that I know you talked about kind of throwing the dark grains in towards the last part of the mash, or in Nancy's case, cold steep, whatnot. There are other options such as Reese's Black Prince, which is a dehusked black malt. A lot of times you're getting that bitterness and astringency from the tannins in the husk itself. So if you want to try to experiment with something that doesn't have a husk, such as the Carafas, Carafa 1, 2, and 3 from Wireman, or like Perla Negra is like 350 Lava Bond huskless grain from I can't remember the malting, Patagonia. So you can play around with these different grains and adding them at different times to pull out different characteristics. So if you don't have the option of like cold steeping ahead of time and you need to do your dark grains in the mash, for example, but don't want that bitterness and astringency, choose a dehusked malt. That would be another option.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Kenny.
I would second the that black malt. I've even used it in porters, and you can make it really dark. But I mean, I'm talking about like 1/4 of an ounce in a 5-gallon batch. Really small amount just to make it dark, but it's easy to overdo it and get you just smoked your whole batch of beer.
Yeah, Dustin, have you brewed with
Absolutely,
that much, like 1 pound of black malt? Like, does it taste like licking an ashtray?
I do the I think that's partially why I do the adding it towards the end of the mash. Like I was talking about, I think that kind of cuts into some of that astringency and some of that sharp flavor that you would get out of black malt. I really like historical beers. I really like making. I brew a lot of old British recipes, and something I just finally tried on my last beer that always just seemed like completely crazy to everything I knew about using roast grains is I did a recipe that traditionally the recipe was from like the late 1800s, and the brewery would add 10% of their dark grain into the boil in a bag. And I did that, and I was really happy with the results.
Oh, I mean, I guess that's not much different than like steeping tea, right?
Yeah, but everything as far as astringency, like and I still did add it towards the end in the mash, but it ended up only being like 2/10 of a pound that I put in like a hop bag into the boil, but I left it in for the full boil, and it really it just had this deep dark malt character that didn't come across to me as sharp. But I don't know, it could have just been in my head, but I felt like I could pick up these new different notes from the black malt that I hadn't gotten before. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, looking at the rest of this recipe, I've definitely brewed with too much Special B before, and it made me appreciate the subtleness of Special B. And I think you hit a good spot of Special B being a good depth of flavor to this imperial.
I definitely think that it's there's a lot of stouts that I like that I like starting to drink them cold, but to me in particular the Belgian I think really benefits from warming up even compared to other dark beers that I've made.
Yeah, I think everyone's beer should now be, moderately warm, probably around 50 degrees now if it was just taken out of the fridge. That's really good.
Yeah, I
Can
feel
you
like
talk a little
I
bit?
get more malt character. Go ahead.
Yeah, I straight up taste like Belgian chocolate. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, other than chocolatey. And when you eat a really good chocolate bar and it has that, it kind of does emulate alcohol. I don't know how else to describe that mouthfeel when you bite into a really nice like Dick Taylor chocolate bar, and it just tastes decadent, but it also has this like, I don't know, roasted, slightly acidic flavor to it. I think this beer is really, really well balanced. I can't even believe that this is 10%. I'm glad I'm not drinking more than these. And I'm glad none of us have to drive. I gotta say, glad none of us have to drive. So just as a caveat, the fermented under COVID conditions beer, I decided to do a Belgian beer, and I feel like I made a lot of mistakes. Not to point anything out, but what's your strategy for using Belgian yeast? Specifically, like starting temperatures, ramping. How do you like to ferment your yeast? And let's start out, like, what yeast did you choose for this one?
There's really, like, I did use a Belgian stout yeast. To my knowledge, there might be one more. I think the source for it is Castile. I used Workhorse from Imperial Yeast. It to me, I don't know how to describe it. It has a little bit of kind of, I don't know, the spice from the Belgian yeast is a little more prevalent early on. If I use it in something, I plan on letting it sit around for a little bit before I get into it. Then it kind of mellows out and really just like accents the malt to me. I get a little, I don't know. I really, compared to all other Belgian yeast and Belgian styles, I really think of Belgian stouts as kind of almost like their own little thing. Like but in general with Belgian yeasts, like, I don't know, it's similar to saisons too, but not so much including saison yeasts, which are very much their own thing. I think I generally like, I don't try to do it with anything, but I generally really try to keep the temperature from dropping even a small amount at any period. I definitely, and that's part of why I like starting really low. In that slow build up is a lot of Belgian yeast strains, especially kind of the bigger ones, the Trappist strains. You drop that temperature 2 or 3 degrees, and you'll see fermentation sometimes just cut out. And some of them are really difficult to revive and get them going again. So it's almost like, I mean, I certainly wouldn't recommend starting anything at a high temperature, but start it low, let it build up, but lean more towards slowly increasing than, try to get worried about cooling it down and then end up dropping the temperature a few degrees, because with Belgian yeast strains, they're just super testy with that.
So like this Workhorse strain, it starts, I think they said 65 to 75. So do you start at like 65 and then ramp it up like in a day or 2 days or 3 days, a week? Like, what do you usually do?
Yeah, 3 to 5 days probably. I usually start anything with a big beer. I usually start at least a couple degrees under the recommended range. So I don't have the notes for this one right here in front of me, but I would say I would want to pitch a beer that, a big beer that they say is the bottom end 65. I want to pitch that at 62 or 63. That's about where I want it. And then I just let it try to sit there at that temperature until I start getting signs of fermentation. And then I'll think of kind of, hopefully, like in a perfect world, the beer will take care of itself and slowly start ramping its temperature up. But if not, then I'll start trying to add a little more heat. I don't have temperature controlled like a mini fridge or anything. I'm old school. I use seedling heating mats, and to cool it down, I use wet towels.
hey, whatever works, and
Hey. I can usually keep it, without any problem, especially once I can get it on the heating mat. I can usually keep it within 1 to 2 degrees of whatever I want to. And
it probably
that's-
helps that
that's good enough for
any
me.
temperature that's not controlled is probably hovering around like 58 for you right now.
Oh, totally. No, I'm like right now, like my garage is like 30 something degrees. It's just like cold crash central. I don't even have to deal with like trying to put stuff in I have a temperature controlled chest freezer, but I mainly just have it full of hoppy beer for the most part. But yeah, it's awesome. I have like 4 carboys out just hanging out in the garage cold crashing right now that like whenever, I don't even have to worry. I don't, if it sits there for a couple of weeks or something, it isn't like a hard cold crash. They usually get down to like probably between 40 to 45 or something is where the beer sits. Yeah.
Nice.
Let it hang
So
out.
when did you brew this beer? Sorry.
Sorry, it was me. I said I think I had that exact same problem with my FUCC beer I just made. I was doing a Belgian stout, not an imperial, but and I was using the Trappist yeast. And I think I pitched it just in like I don't really think about it that much. I just try to get it to within the like upper limits of the range. And then it went for like pretty strong for 2 or 3 days, but then quickly kind of puttered out, and I missed my gravity by I don't know. I ended up having like about 1% or 2 less ABV than I was expecting. Would that be part of it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, yeah, sounds like similar to what happens with me, if I let the temperature drop or whatever. They just, in my experience, they're just really testy with that. And I know like some British strains that aren't, that are like super flocculent, you can get that, and you can just kind of shake the carboy or get the temperature up a little bit, and they'll come back. But I've found more so with Belgian strains that they just like, you either gotta, you gotta do something like I'll hit it with a really big yeast starter, or I'll I definitely raise the temperature, but sometimes you're just stuck, and even that yeast starter is only gonna eat a few more points off for you. I've had hit and miss with that, trying to revive them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, fermentations. So, yeah, Dustin, when did you brew this beer? How old is this thing?
It's,
Roughly.
I think I brewed it. I think I brewed it here, but I think I brewed it probably, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. It's been a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's delicious. Does anyone have anything else to add or more questions for Dustin before we move on from this type of subject? I guess people are probably curious, like hops. What did you do for hops? Since we covered malt and yeast, and
just 1.3 ounces a nugget, 90 minutes. Just for this one, I was just trying to hit hit 50 IBUs. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, so let's open the floor to questions directed at Dustin. If you've got any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and go for it. We've been pretty good about asking questions along the way.
Dustin, thank you. And your beer is really good. I'm just really enjoying it. And I'm really glad I don't have to drive. It's great.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
It's just got, the more it warms up, the more stuff is going on. And I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. So thank you very, very much.
Agreed.
And also-
David, more than question, delicious beer. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, let's cheers, Dustin, to a freaking delicious beer and sharing it with us all.
Cheers.
Just out of curiosity, Hans, how many more of these beers do you have on hand of the Belgian Imperial?
As of about 5 minutes ago, we have none.
Okay. Cool. Well, that was my curiosity.
Damn, dude, I was getting ready to sprint right over there.
I know. I think of the BC, we think of 5.
Yeah, there's no more of the AC.
Yeah, the AC is
Just the
gone,
BC.
but I think we've got 5 BCs left.
Dustin's like
apparently I
BC.
I'm honestly trying to think of what BC
BI.
is.
Yeah. Apparently it's a must that this household must try your beer. My mom says so. So Hans, hold one for me. Thank you very much, because I did a horrible thing by not going and grabbing the AC versus the DC or VC.
Yeah, wait, so Hans,
BI.
clarify what you have.
We have
Clarify.
5 bottles of 3 bottles of BI. 5.
Okay.
5.
Wait,
All
make
right.
up your mind. Does it depend on like how many you drink between now and tomorrow, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeez, I hope you don't drink too many more of these. Ooh, that'd be a terrible wake-up call for a Friday.
If you could possibly earmark one of those for me, I would really appreciate it, since I didn't get a chance to pick one up earlier.
Yeah, so just out of curiosity, so we have Talvi, Mike, Matt. Who else is
Mike,
going to go to Eureka for one of those?
Guys, message me on Facebook or something like that. Let's set up a time for you guys to come by and pick up a beer this weekend or sometime.
Thank you,
Or else
Mom.
I'm gonna drink it.
You're amazing. Also, thank you for like hosting all the things in the past while. You were absolutely astounding for doing all that work when, let's face it, you didn't have to, and you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciated.
All right, so let me look really quick. I took a picture of the key that you wrote on the box. But where is that in my photos? Definitely before Christmas.
No, I think yeah, I can
there
look
it
up.
is.
I think he said that it was BIs that he had, so that's just the Belgian Imperial.
So
yeah.
BIs, and then ACs are the Abnormal Brewing Chocolate Stout.
Yeah.
With cocoa nibs. So the ACs, do you have more of those ACs as well, Hans? No. Yeah, there were significantly less of those than the IBs. I think there were only like 5 of those.
Apparently, Chris had a pre-test taste testing before they got to me.
No, I drank one of them. I drank one of the IBs, not any of the ACs.
So that would be a taste testing before, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to, in answer to Pete's question, it was the yeast was Workhorse by Imperial Yeast. Just their Belgian stout yeast strain. It comes from, I think, Castile Brewing. Yeah.
And you have a brew shop in Healdsburg, don't you?
Healdsburg?
In Hillsborough? In here?
In Hillsborough, there's a shop called Main Brew. It's really nice. They have a monster bottle shop next door that just has hundreds and hundreds of bottles. Yeah, the people are really nice, really good grain selection. Yeah, it's really cool. And then also there's FH Steinbart, which I've only been to once, but it's the oldest homebrew shop in the United States. It's over 100 years old. Yeah, in Portland, yeah.
The one in Hillsborough, do you know, is there a guy there, Stephen Brainerd, that works there?
Stephen Brainerd. I don't recognize the name offhand. Yeah.
Is there one in Beaverton? A brew shop?
I don't think there's one in Beaverton. I think maybe there's one in Tigard or Tigard. I don't know. I'm terrible at pronouncing the names.
I always called it Tigard, but it is Tigard.
Yeah. No, I always screw it up every time. Like I think that's no, I can't. But yeah, that's why I mean.
You know, I just want to point out that we are always looking for collaboration between Humboldt County and different counties. And since you've moved, would you consider, say, getting your homebrew friends up there working on something with us, even if it's something like this, where we do the FUCC beer and give out specific things? Would that be something that would be interesting to you and the group up there?
Yeah, are you active in the homebrew club up there?
I am, but it's just I was only able to go to one. They had like a socially distance meeting, and they split up the group to a bunch of different houses, so everyone just had like 8 or 10 people. I only went to one of those meetings before they shut that down like a few months ago. So I've really only been to one of their meetings in person and one of their meetings online, but it sounds really cool. Like I would love to do some type of collaboration thing, but yeah, I'm still pretty new to the group. Yeah.
What's the name of that homebrew club? Just out of curiosity.
It's a Portland Brewers Collective. It's just kind of like
I know who that
I
is.
I would compare it to the like obviously the Oregon Brew Cruise, like the really big one down here with like hundreds of people. And the PBC is just kind of like, it's much more, it's smaller, a little more laid back, but it was pretty nice. Like the one meeting I went to in person, like the other new person besides me wrote the cover article for Zimmergy that in like the last issue. There's definitely people that are very active in professional brewing as well as home brewing and stuff. That's pretty cool about it.
Sweet. Well, next time you talk to someone in the club, one of the officers, you should plug the homebrewers, the Humboldt Homebrewers. Be like, hey, we're looking for collabs.
And what kind of, just like have an idea, what type of collaboration are you thinking? Like the everyone brews the same beer and sends it, or
no, I think, well, yes, well, in a lot of ways, yes, but I think we're doing Iron Brewer. We have a lot of small town festivals going on, like to have participation from people from major areas, especially when it's really hard to get noticed in a big area. So maybe some of them do want to come down for the Homebrew Fest. Maybe some of them do want to participate in those collaborative brews, or even in the events where we just had a thing where was it the FUCC where Hans, thank you Hans again, a million times, was willing to, like, Kenneth from Beerworks was willing to donate stuff so that everybody could have some ingredients and then expand from there. Little things like that. Little things where it's like, do you want to be part of a small community where we are all collaborating together? That might feel really nice to people from big towns, where sometimes it's just you bring your best, that big town vibe. We're here, we like, even talking to you, it feels like we have really worked hard. Like my mom, even, like, you just got her into brewing. She's I've been forcing her to talk about her brewing history because she's Finnish, and like she's got her mother's thing, and she's talking to me about brewing. Little things like that where it's hometown vibe here. So to maybe bring those bigger cities into the hometown vibe, to do whatever collaborations are wanted. I am all about, personally, I think it'd be great to do, yes, we get all the same ingredients, but also the Iron Brewer scenario where maybe we expand it to a different group and they get the same ingredients we get, be they Cheerios or whatever. Iron Brewer is a very hard thing to do. You get random ingredients. So yes, it's just a big bunch of yes. However people want to participate, I think it'd be really amazing to collaborate with them. So all of that.
No, that all sounds really interesting. Sorry to change the subject, but I would like to hear about what kind of beer that your mom's mother was brewing. That sounds really interesting to me.
Yes, mom. Okay, so
it was more lemony beer.
My mother's Sammy from Finland. So yes,
Laplander.
And actually, I think. So I'm gonna love you, Mom, but my mom's not the biggest brewer, and I fought for like recipes and stuff. Christina actually brewed a beer and brought it to the club that was the epitome of Finnish brewing. So Christina, if you're willing to share about our mutually shared Finnish ancestry and the beer that you brought, I think this is an appropriate time to throw it to you, because I love my mom and we are going to brew beer. She's very excited about this, but I know that Christina's already brewed it and has entered it into local competitions, and it was amazing, and I believe it won awards.
Nice.
Yeah, Christina, you remember the Sati?
I think
That's what it was.
the Sati or maybe the Sema. So the
Sima.
Yeah,
lemonade.
my mom is excited. Both of them are very, very finished. So.
I think more than anything, I was just fascinated with the history of, I think Scandinavian brewing, mostly being very traditional and mostly sort of, from what I had read and heard, been passed down through generations of women. So it was like a female dominated sort of thing, which is, I think, sort of cross-cultural to what we see brewing as here in the US, at least, in Western culture, has been predominantly like male driven.
Your Sati though was astounding, and
I love shit.
yes, yes, it is very good beer. I think anybody who has tried it will admit.
I remember.
Yes, you actually went through all of the old school processes to create it, including the juniper bit, everything. And I think, since it was asked, please
That's what
explain
it
it to
is.
everyone else. I think my mom would love the history lesson again, too.
I know what to do.
I think one of the biggest reasons I got into it too was because my grandmother is Danish, and she had just passed away at the time, and so I wanted to do something sort of in commemoration of her, even though she didn't drink beer. But she had given my dad a juniper tree when they moved, I think probably 15 years ago. So at that point, the juniper tree was like huge. And my dad had just cut off all these branches and did some yard work at the time. And they smelled so amazing. And I was like, I wonder like what you could do with these. And so it led me down the rabbit hole of looking into Sati and learning more about it and just becoming like so absorbed with it at the time. And so the process was, it definitely involved taking those juniper branches that I brought back up to Humboldt with me and using them as the filter for the mash. So instead of sort of like letting everything drip out in the bottom of your mash tun or through your false bottom, which is probably what most of us use, unless we're doing brew in a bag. So instead of doing that, you actually dumped out the mash into these juniper leaves. And from what else I had read, sometimes the process is, at least in older times, traditionally you would use what's called, I think, a kurna, and I totally am probably butchering that, but it's Kurna.
My mom has the perfect, mom, say it again.
Kirno.
Oh, I'm not even gonna try.
I can't say it either.
Kirno?
I have no idea. That's beautiful though. So
Yes.
it's
Say it one more time.
piece of
Kirno.
wood, right?
And is that like the hollowed out, like the wooden trough or whatever? Okay, cool. I thought there's a book out about like Norwegian farmhouse brewing techniques, and they get into Scandinavia and Lithuania, but they talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just found a blog online too where this other guy, I think he's actually American with Scandinavian heritage, and he went down the rabbit hole and actually went to all these different Scandinavian countries and Lithuania to learn from these families that had been brewing in this traditional fashion for generations. And if I find it again, I'll link it on the Facebook page for everyone in case you want to.
Lars blog. Lars blog.
Yeah,
know it.
Lars blog. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. If you guys ever see it anywhere, there's up here in I want to say they're located in Bend. It's called Ale Apothecary, and they do a Sati that's really nice. They do. They're one of the. They're one from what I've read. It's a really like excellent
They
representation
are,
of the style.
if anybody goes to, they are awesome.
They're amazing.
I've
I mean,
had
they're
one and I have one in the cellar and they're amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, and all their beers are great, but they're really into those like Nordic farmhouse styles kind of thing, which is amazing. They make raw beers and all different kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they took our group up to their, I don't know if you've been up to their farm where they do their brewing, and they use open kettles, and their tasting room is in Bend, and I mean, that's a must. I love that place. That's one of my favorite places in the world. It's great. Really, they make great
They're
beer.
amazing.
And they're really great people, which makes great beer.
Well, if anyone doesn't mind too much, can we get back to some agenda items, maybe? Yeah. All right, Hans, what's next up on our agenda?
We're gonna go over his last beer. We still have the last beer we haven't taste tested.
AC.
The AC beer, we haven't tested that. If we're going to try and make the end of this meeting, we should probably spend about 5 minutes on that before we start covering the rest of what we need to go through on the agenda.
Well, I'm hoping we could just kind of, talk a little bit about it, not necessarily go as in depth on the next one. But we do have some more agenda items to take care of, and I'm hoping to get this thing wrapped up in the next 15, 20, I hope. Yeah.
Well, we can get if we can get the beer wrapped up in the next 15 minutes, we probably got at least 30 minutes.
No, let's get this beer talked about. I don't even have mine with me. It's downstairs. I don't think I can drink another 9%er. Jeez.
Again.
Yeah, let me just kind of the recipe from this came from a brewery called Abnormal Brewing. To be honest, like I've never drank their beer, and I don't even know where they're located offhand. But I was trying to find recipes that used a ridiculous amount of dark malt, but I was looking for like a clone or something that someone else had tried before I just jumped into it myself. This has just under 4 pounds of dark malt in it.
Oh, okay. I want to hear this recipe.
There's 2 pounds of chocolate malt. There's a pound of midnight wheat, and 3/4 pound of roasted barley. This I think it came from Beer and Brewing was where they put the recipe up. The brewery did. One of the things that they had that just like it blew my mind and I couldn't do it. They used 2 pounds of maltodextrin in it. And that just like I couldn't find one other recipe that used that much maltodextrin.
Oh, I could have given you a recipe with that much maltodextrin.
So I just used a pound of the maltodextrin, but this is basically it's their adjunct stout base beer for all their adjunct stouts. And so I did a chocolate version, I did a chocolate coffee version. I just did my own version of that, but their name for their chocolate stout and their chocolate coffee stout is Tummy Cuddles, and the other one is called Snuggle Pups.
Oh my God. So the rest of the recipe, is it just all base malt, or does it also include like Munich and stuff like that? Or
no, it's pretty basic. I think I just used it just called for 2-row, but I'd always been eyeing this ESB base malt, so I used I think it was 10 pounds of 2-row and 5 pounds of ESB malt. I think it's Canadian. It's like Gambrinus or something. Mm-hmm. All the dark malts, it uses 1 3/4 pounds flaked oats. I did I think half a pound of Crystal 80 and half pound Crystal 80, half pound Crystal 120. The pound of maltodextrin, rice hulls, and I used 2.5 pounds of dry malt extract.
Nice. Whew, so what did this one clock in at? 9.8, I think.
Yeah, this one, that sounds right. Yeah. I think this one, same thing, like high 9s. Yeah.
Crazy, man. So what's your impression of this beer? It's twice the amount of chocolate, same amount of roast barley, but how do you think, does anyone have one of those beers popped in front of them? I'm not going to pop that one right now. Sorry to say it.
It's delicious.
So what's that body
like?
like?
To me, like it doesn't have a super, I was looking for a bigger dark malt character, to be honest. And the it sounds like so much, and it's definitely, you know, more than I had ever used before, but it didn't, I mean, to me, it didn't come across as being like super roasty.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
definitely chocolatey, but it's not like punch you in the face roasty at all. It's nice and smooth.
Well, and once again, part of, if you think about roasting, you're thinking about that darkness, that burnt, that astringency that roasting brings. So it may behoove you to try a batch and add the grains during the dark grains during the full time of the mash to pull out some of those tannins, pull out some of that astringency. I don't know, man. It's a damn good beer, though. You should not be disappointed in it. It's absolutely amazing. So,
Oh man, thank you, Kenny. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I want to say, how do you think the maltodextrin impacted the body of that beer? Do you think it had a measurable impact on it? Do you feel like it has a bigger body than that 10%er that we just drank?
Well, the finishing gravity on them is let me try to find this. The Belgian finished at 1024, and this one finished at 1035, which is in general like way higher than I usually want to finish my stouts. But since I was going for a slightly sweet adjunct chocolate, you know, even the one I used coffee in, I tried to do, it's kind of like an old school baking trick of, I just used like a little bit of coffee to try to bring out the chocolate a little more. You know, I definitely meant them to be on the dessert stout side, but yeah, I in general do not care for dessert or whatever, pastry stouts or whatever the hell they call them. I think they're gross and under attenuated, but a little bit on the sweeter side than I usually go, for sure.
So, I mean, do you feel like the body of this one is thicker perceptibly than the last one, despite it having or in accordance with the lower or higher finishing gravity?
I think so. You know, I mean, I don't.
What do
I
you all
don't think I
think,
get
Caitlin
as
and
much
Kenny?
perceived sweetness as I would think that would add, but I think it comes across as is chewier. I think.
Caitlin and Kenny, did you guys pop one of the other ones too? Did you try some of both?
Yeah, we had the BI first, and now we're drinking the AC.
So
we're not driving anywhere.
No, but what do you guys think? Do you think the AB is thicker, like in flavor?
Maybe just a skosh, but it doesn't come across as like chewy or anything.
Mm-hmm. So
there's a definite difference with this one, though. Dustin, you said you used nibs. That chocolatiness definitely comes out in this, but it's a damn fantastic dessert beer. It does not, on the mouthfeel, does not feel like, you said this ended at 1035.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that sweet, because I agree, I'm not really into the super sweet dessert stouts, but this one's dry enough that the chocolate can shine through and you don't really lose it all to just sugar.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
And I do have to say, as a lesson of, using maltodextrin, if you've ever taken dry maltodextrin and tasted it, it doesn't taste sweet necessarily. And if we're measuring with our hydrometers that measure the density of that liquid, the maltodextrin as an added, it is called a sugar, but it's not necessarily super sweet. So a beer of mine I did with 2.5 pounds of maltodextrin for a 5-gallon batch. And I was expecting this thing to be chewy, like super chewy. And it turns out that I had a bigger impact from mouthfeel using lactose than I did from maltodextrin. I did the same exact beer. One I did with less lactose, and the other one I did with more maltodextrin. And the one that I used with lactose just felt so much thicker. It was the most bizarre thing to me, but it's it's kind of a lesson in terms of, a thick, chewy mouthfeel. You've
So
really
I'm
got to go
still,
pretty big on that.
Chris, I'm still confused about chewy because I literally got Gummy Worms Chewy Pale Ale tonight. My mom's
You
loving
can
it.
call whatever you
Well,
want
what
chewy.
does that mean? Because I'm like, I don't feel like this is actually chewy. Mouthfeel is very different from what you're describing. So is there actually a legitimate term? My mom says it tastes like cactus, and that could be fair.
It's good.
Cactus,
good.
cactus
But
is astringent to me.
is there an actual, not to be judgy, but is there a judgmental foundation upon chewy, the term chewy? Because I feel like after all the judging factors I've done over the years, I don't know if there's a chewy category. What does that actually mean in brewing?
I think of like a big, intense malt character, like I think of something that, it feels thick, it feels heavy, and that's what I associate with chewy, a dense body. I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe coating the tongue a bit.
Yeah. Exactly. I would go with, it coats your tongue. It's not necessarily slick, but it gives you a full mouthfeel. When you drink, like, imagine eggnog. Eggnog is like the quintessential chewy liquid, in my opinion. That thick, viscous character, in my opinion, is what I call chewy. I don't know about anyone else, but I mean, that's the definition of chewy. It's like a thick mouthfeel, a perceived body that's,
I agree. So perhaps, because this is called Gummy Worms Chewy Pale Ale, it sounded fun, but it doesn't
I still haven't had that one yet.
categories of chewy.
I think it's just playing on the gummy aspect of it,
Yeah.
But there's no gummy aspect. I almost felt like it should have like boba in it or something. I did. It's a light pale ale that's very fruity and actually really good. But I feel like it doesn't deserve the term chewy. So when you were saying chewy right now, I was like, that's literally the beer I chose for tonight because I forgot to pick up the one Pons. My bad. But it didn't fit that category. What does chewy mean? Because
Well,
when
it's
you are
the
judging,
difference between like water and milk.
Yeah. Viscosity.
the viscosity does count for sure.
The difference between
No,
whole
chewy.
milk and skim milk. I mean,
Yeah.
like whole milk is chewier than skim milk.
When you put it like that, put it
there you
like
go.
that, for sure. Okay. Because I was just like, I was almost offended when you were talking about chewy things, and I didn't feel like I had a chewy factor in front of me. So I'm just gonna call this thing that I got a not chewy actual pale ale.
I would call a hazy IPA more chewy than a pale ale.
Yeah. Legit. Had it been a hazy IPA. I'm actually almost upset because I was expecting.
Kind of by definition, you don't want a chewy pale ale. And if you do find a chewy pale ale,
a chili chewy,
you should be skeptical of that one. And I would agree that the Gummy Worms is not chewy, period. No.
Oh, thank you. I was very confused on that.
It's marketing, it's not chewy. I would add to that conversation, and definitely, but also, I mean, there's certain flavors that just make you go, and it might not be a viscousness, but it makes you just like go, whoa, what is that? What is that taste? And
cloying sometimes.
There you go, cloying.
No, I disagree.
Viscous.
I disagree because cloying, in my opinion, is sweetness. Sweetness is directly related with cloying. However, chewy is not necessarily related to sweetness.
Right.
I agree.
Density versus sweetness.
To me, like when you get into like pastry stouts and stuff, like whatever dessert stouts used to be, and now they're like pastry stouts, and they're finishing in like freaking 40s or whatever. Like that I can see where that's interacting, where you have the chewiness this like lack of of fermenting down and getting dry. But overall, I follow you. Like sweetness and chewiness is not the same thing usually.
You know, when I was working with Aaron at the booth for a minute, he basically described chewiness as, especially when it comes to, you know, an IPA, which is generally where that term falls into the whole gamut of that, you know, terminology, I guess. But he said it is basically really based on hops. That chewiness comes from that heavy hop back note that you get with this. Also, they added a lot of maltodextrin to this IPA to make the you know,
The Eureka Soul.
the viscosity of
Yeah.
it, you know, just being very, very thick. So anyways, that's just my input.
Yeah, and I feel like back when we were talking about old school IPAs, you know, the terminology has changed a bit, especially with the advent of the pastry stouts, you know, so to speak. But back when we were talking about like West Coast IPAs, and you know, if someone says, "Oh, what's a really chewy, you know, West Coast IPA?" So many people always said Stone. You know, Stone always had like really chewy IPAs because they were super malt forward, you know. But I feel like the terminology definitely changes with the ages of, you know, what styles are becoming popular and how they're using them.
That was just
Man,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Sorry.
This is absolutely fantastic conversation. However, it's about 20 minutes before 9 o'clock. This meeting's gone on an hour, 40 minutes. I would love to continue this conversation. Can we move that to like Facebook or some other thing? There's about 20 minutes left in this scheduled meeting. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed?
Thank you, Kenneth, because I think so.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We're going to talk about Juicy next, right?
So divide yourself.
I think we just talked about Juicy a lot.
All right. First off,
wait. No, I'm just.
All right. Thanks, Chrissy, for posting that link about maltodextrin being not so sweet. Yes, agreed. Maltodextrin not so sweet. Going back to our agenda.
Proposal from Peter Carlson to make a club donation.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
All right, I'll make this quick. And first, I will take a quick moment of my time to once again say happy holidays.
Yes.
I saved a 6-pack that I was going to share with friends last year and didn't get around to it. And because of the one P word we can talk about, the pandemic, this year I decided to make my way through. This is the 2013, the last of the 6-pack that actually I would say is probably the best one of the 6-pack that I did. It's still carbonated. It has an amazing taste. So if you can find old Anchor Steam Holiday Ale, it's well. Anyway, something I keep meaning to bring up and either forget or we're on time. Right? So as you all know, we are a nonprofit, and one of the goals of the nonprofit has been to raise funds and contribute to the community. And I started thinking about this a couple months ago, at least, and thought, well, you know, it's been a while since the club made a donation. And I think, you know, this time of the year, during this year and this past year in particular, it'd be a good time to support the community. And my proposal, which is open to discussion, but I like supporting Food for People. I think it would be a very appropriate organization for the homebrewers to support. And it would definitely directly contribute to helping children, which is one of the long-term goals of the club. But it's open discussion on what group we would donate to, but that's my proposal.
Pete, I love that proposal, and may I add a little bit to that before you go on, and then I will throw it back to you, because it is fundraising season. I'm about to enter a world of a lot of fundraisers where I'm supposed to be very active. I'm supposed to post videos and things like that to raise funds. And I'm just saying, I think it would be cool for a moment for every active member to get the same donation, maybe even if it's just like $50 or something from our club to each thing. And I know sometimes we want more, but for like every member that's active in something, that's putting themselves out there, to maybe put forth like $50 from this club to do that over the next 3 months, specifically because the next 3 months are fundraising territory. Like, I literally have people hitting me up left and right for that. And I don't think we don't need money right now. What are we doing? Like, if we can provide more, I'm all about that. And I think that is an officer meeting sort of thing, a little bit. Like, what are we willing to put forth? And I think really the entire point of this club is we have a lot of fun and we raise funds in order to make the world better. That's always been the thing. So you have my support. Though also I want to put out that, like, if we are going to start donating to different groups in the name of this club, I think we should put a value on what we put forth, especially because the next few months are going to be really hard for every group. But to have our name out there too is nice. To let people know it's happening is wonderful, that they can come in and be a brewer too. They can be a beer fan. And then also it stinks to spread those funds thinly. But if we put, like, I think this is, are you still an officer, Pete?
Yes,
Peter,
Pete is still, yes, Pete is an officer.
Okay, sorry. Like, I'm sorry, I'm part of like now different, like 5 different groups. So it's
Talvi, something's going on with your mic. Can you like move something, or like you suddenly sound so far away?
Okay. Does that sound better?
Weird.
Can you hear me a little bit?
Oddly enough, not. No, you were sounding so great, and then suddenly it went like in a tunnel.
That's fine.
Weird. Yeah, okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Long story short, too long didn't read version. There are so many clubs happening out here, and every single member is part of different nonprofits to give the money that we have worked so hard for, which we work hard for this specifically. Like, it was already created, like when we started this foundation, I was there in those meetings. Any money we make is to be given to those who need it in this community. And so to do that, it's very difficult, especially this year where everybody needs so much help. And so I think as individual members, especially to also entice us to go out there, to put a set forth, if you go out and do something, this is the amount you make when you go do that. Be it Bowl for Kids' sake, be it a cleanup act, anything. I think we should actually create something where if you do that, here's the automatic amount you make to do that. That may be an officers meeting thing.
No, I don't really see these things, necessarily being officer driven.
No, it can be member driven too. If a member does it, we should give it. We earned a lot. We have a lot in our funds. We have a lot in our coffers right now. I feel like that isn't a lot. It's not a lot. It's not like Ingomar a lot. But we have enough to, say, give people who need incentive to go do something, a little something for the cause. No. And I think we should be a little looser in that right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Hey, Talvi, we're gonna pause for a
That's
second.
fine. I will. You can.
Thanks.
I would love to see it be
Hey,
like a
yeah.
simple donation. I feel like we have such a hard time getting our poop in a group and doing something. We don't need to complicate
Agreed.
it. Let's just do something simple and get something out there. Like,
I
we're all
agree.
really busy, and to try and like say you need to go earn something to give it away from our what we already have.
That's my point. That's literally what I'm trying to say. So thank you. That's like, go do something and we will.
No,
support
I don't
you.
have time to go do something extra right now. Unfortunately, I'm working. I know a lot of other people are busy. I would love to
Then
see your club
maybe
get
we
back
can do
to
it
the
digitally where members can, because we do have to, like, it's a financial thing because we are a nonprofit. We have to, like, in our treasury, we have to do this. Like, in order to be a club, in order to keep our books up to date, we have to have reasons. And so maybe
we have funds raised already, and Pete was just talking about making a donation.
Right.
Exactly. No, that's my point. And that's what brought this up, is that, like, we still need to all raise our hands as a board and say, yes, we will donate to that. And I think this is the time where we should be accepting everything. That's my point. Maybe I didn't make that very clear. My apologies. I have a lot going on and sometimes my words get scattered. What I mean is, everybody needs any money we've created right now for our club, we should be scattering out into the community. I really feel that way, but we also need to be focused on where it goes. And how to do that is, perhaps we should, even if it's online, even if it's just here's a thing, vote on who you want to do. We have to have votes because we are an actual nonprofit. And unfortunately, that's true. We just can't hand out money. And I think we should be able to do that. But that's my point is, okay, Pete has an amazing group that needs funds. Let's do that.
I'll just jump in. I fully supporting multiple organizations in the community. Where I'm coming from is we have, as a club, we have raised funds in the past, and they are sitting there doing nothing. And
that's what I'm talking about too.
We can do something with them, and it requires a vote from.
It requires the vote, is what I'm talking about.
It
Thank you
requires
so
a
much.
vote from the club, which is why I brought it up in the meeting.
Nice.
Well, it can part of the proposal be, here's what we have set aside. We are proposing donating this amount out of what we have to this organization on a one-time basis, and then the next time it's a different organization, maybe.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yes, we can do that, and this can be thought about and voted on at the next meeting. Or if people wanted to just vote on donating to some organization now.
Why don't we vote on doing food
it.
for people,
Either way.
and then next time around we can do something else. I mean, why? Let's just try to keep it simple and keep it focused and get the money where it needs to be. I know it needs to be a lot of places, but we also, as individuals, or
I don't want to
things that
offend
we do.
anybody. That's Nancy, thank you so much, because I really appreciate that. And I think Food for People needs money badly. And I think.
All right, folks, everyone's talking over each other. Caitlin's been raising her hand, or sorry. Kenny's been raising a hand. So Kenny, you're next. Go for it.
I hear what everybody is saying, but everybody is talking to this big muddled mess. What I propose as a general club member is that the officers figure out how much money we have in the coffers, number one. How much money we have to donate, number two. And number three, give us a list of nonprofit organizations such as Food for People, such as CASA, such as Big Brothers, Big Sisters, such as the Discovery Museum, who has hosted us at the PAL camp. Let's get these ideas together instead of just creating a big muddled mess. Let's figure out how much money we have, how much we have to donate, and number three, where we're giving it to. Agreed?
Yeah, so I mean, those sound like very sound strategies. Sorry, I force muted everyone so that, you know, we don't have people, you know, keep going in and out, in and out. And it looks like Talvi's gone. But anyway, I muted everyone so we could actually have a conversation instead of just talking over each other. I hope everyone is okay with that, but now I'm gonna allow you to unmute yourself. Okay, Hans, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
All right, so at this point in time, we have a motion on the floor essentially from Peter to do a vote or to have an open discussion about whether or not we want to do donation. In which case Kenny came back, which would I'd say would be a modification to that motion, that we hold off for right now until we find out and do an audit of our current money that we have in our account. In order for us to continue to do that, Peter would have to say yes to Kenny's proposal to his motion, in which case we would then go back, find out what we have in our coffers, and come back with the next meeting with the information that what money we have in our coffers, and then come back to Peter's original motion saying, would you like to continue with the motion of donating to a cause, in which case the entire group would then be allowed to say yay or nay.
So I have a mostly current financial report from the Ink people because we haven't done anything since we've received this financial report. So if you give me a minute to drag through our, when did that was January. So let me dig through this really quick. Thanks for your patience. So we can, you know, just have a general idea of how much we've got. But Matt, do you have the ability to look at how many active members we've got right now? Yeah, would you mind, you know, digging through that sheet right now, just so we have an idea of how many paid members we've got? Because I feel like if we can attach this number to, like, you know, how many active member or how many paid members we have for the year, and just straight up fix it to that and say, hey, we donate the amount of membership that we have for the year to whatever, you know, I feel like that would be an easy metric to do that would change with the times depending on how many people we actually have in the club, you know, instead of pulling a number out of our butts, you know. Does anyone want to talk about, you know, other strategies one at a time? About how we, you know, pull this number out of thin air? I'm looking for our there we go. You guys can unmute yourself. No, no one can unmute themselves. No? Allow. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that checkbox. I apologize. Okay, you should now be able to unmute yourself, right?
All right.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So long story short, I sent an email to the club earlier discussing a few things. The officers should have access to that email. I hope you guys read it, and in the preface that I'm not trying to pick out any particular person in the email, but we need to discuss a few things. There has been a lack of communication from the board regarding regular club meetings, so on and so forth. I was very disappointed to learn literally the day before this last club meeting that it was canceled due to lack of agenda, lack of foresight, and the guest speaker canceling.
Yeah, my bad.
Then there was a board meeting the next week with notes that were released a couple of weeks later with the agenda items. Most of those agenda items seem like they could have been discussed during the canceled December meeting. The agenda items that were discussed on the officers meeting were not of any prevalence to, well, membership, financials, etc., so on and so forth. You guys had an opportunity to discuss this. You guys can visit this discussion after the meeting, but there was an opportunity for the board to say something during the December canceled meeting to propose helping nonprofits during this time of need. I really hope that the board decides to look at what's going on now and take some of the suggestions, not only coming from me because I'm a squeaky wheel. Don't just take my word for everything, but you guys need to kind of look at yourselves and lead us into this next realm of the club, because there's been no discussion on a lot of these things. FUCC, there was no discussion of, there has been no communication, no post as to what's going on with that. Financials of the club, there's been no discussion of that. So I hope you guys can help us out and move forward and kind of, once again, once we know the financials, we can move forward with this agenda item that Pete had discussed.
Yeah, so December meeting that got canceled. Essentially our guest speaker canceled last minute. So I was just like, there's not much for us to talk about, because that was kind of most of it. The officers meeting, that's totally on me for not sharing a link with anyone. I'm pleasantly surprised to see more people involved in the club. Financials have not changed whatsoever, like not even a blip since the last time we got a financial report. Ben, I feel like we need to get an updated financial report that reflects our last membership drive. Like that's one of the big things.
Has there been a physical audit of cash on hand? Just asking.
Yeah, right before COVID happened. Actually, I think it might have been during like March or April. I did all the petty cash and everything because we had a lot of it, and I deposited a large chunk of it with the ink people. So everything should be accurate. I don't have it with me. I think it's still
okay. So just to confirm, 10 months later, there has not been a physical audit of cash on hand, correct?
Yeah. Well, we haven't accessed
we
it.
haven't.
I haven't accessed it.
Yeah, we haven't accessed it in 10 months.
Worked out outside of this environs. I'm just asking. There has not been a physical audit of the cash on hand for 10 months, correct?
Correct. There also hasn't been any input or output, to our knowledge, of cash on hand. But
that hasn't been discussed with general membership either.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we just haven't, had any activity on whatsoever. Let's see. So as of, what's that, Peter?
I was saying we might want to just, if Peter's okay with this, because he made the initial motion that we vote on this. Kenny suggested a modification of that motion. Might I suggest that we carry this to our next meeting after we do an audit of what we have in our account, as long as Peter is okay with that?
No, I was going to say, thank you, Mr. President. That is a great idea. I fully support that. And I support pretty much everything said this evening. I think this is the best online meeting we've had, period. And thank you, Chris, for addressing some of those issues. I take full responsibility for not bringing up certain points related to our being a nonprofit group. I've also slacked on being a member of the board, but have pitched in when I can. So no, we should continue the discussion, and I think Kenny made a great idea, a great motion to getting our ducks in a line so that we can move forward and discuss things and vote on specifics.
Well, and it sounds like, I mean, to just totally summarize what I'm hearing from Kenny, which I think is valid, is if we could build in some systems that would automate transparency on what we have on the books and membership and minutes and officer minutes, and let people know if they want to be on an officers meeting, they can be if they want to be, and all that. I think if we can build some of that into what we're doing and automate it, let's let the computers do what they do best. You know, we've all got other stuff to do, but if we can do that, I think we, can, do what would be best for everybody, and also not create a whole lot of extra work for everybody on an ongoing basis. Obviously, setting stuff up is work too, but the whole idea is like, don't duplicate the same thing you got to do every month. But if we can set something up where we can make, add some transparency to this, so any, paid dues paying member can find out what they need to know with pretty good either response time, or they can 24/7 look it up. I don't know, something better than what we have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the officers meeting not being, available to everyone, that's totally on me. Like, this, just something that has been out of my mind. It's tough to transition from in person, where you mention like, oh, we're having an officers meeting. It's here, and when you want to meet, like we'll be there. But to be suddenly online and then have to remember to post a link, it's frustrating for me to try to remember all of these bits and pieces. But if anyone ever asks, like, if there's an officers meeting, I also need to put it on Google Calendar. That's the reality of it. Is any online meeting, I need to just put on Google Calendar, which is integrated to our website, publicly available. So,
well, I mean, we can always kick anybody who's not supposed to be on there, right?
I mean, yeah, anyone who, members, we don't really have policies for like officers meetings not being open to the public. It says that it's open to members, but yeah, go ahead, Kenny.
I just want to say that the current board and the tail end of the previous board, you guys are facing a new situation that nobody thought about 10 years ago. The idea is to identify the idea is to identify these issues, try to figure out some sort of positive resolution, so not only we as individuals can move forward, but this club can continue to grow and advance and be there as a resource for other members, not only in our community, but you guys got to realize that we have eyes on us that are much bigger than just Humboldt County. A really good example of that was Drew Beecham's response to my question about club meetings in May, where he responded about what the Maltose Falcons are doing. You guys got to realize, you guys are our leadership. You guys are the ones that people look up to. I'm not currently in a position to be on the board, but I want to be there as a resource. And there are a lot of other resources that you guys can use. We need to reevaluate what we're doing, why we're doing it. Do we exist as a nonprofit? Why do we exist as a nonprofit? What are we going to do to engage not only current club members, but potential future club members? Because that means incoming revenue to this nonprofit organization. So that way, then we can recycle those incoming revenues to other nonprofit organizations, such as what Pete put in today. So we really have to reevaluate what we're doing. And you guys are this is something that nobody else has done in our club. So you guys are our leadership. Our general membership are looking towards you guys to promote homebrewing, not just in Humboldt County, not just as a hobby, but as art, as a science, as what we do up here. And we have so many amazing, talented homebrewers, and you guys are talented in your own rights as far as homebrewers, but also outside of the brew club. So I'm speaking up because I care, and we need to move forward as a club. I haven't seen that. I want to change it. I just don't know how. I need your guys' help.
So just as a general question, I'm just throwing this out there. I mean, other than dues, have we ever really had other sort of revenues or anything like that?
You mean this year or in general?
Anytime. I'm just saying is like, So, I mean, what are we talking about? Like our dues are the money that we have to work with? I mean, I'm trying to
Plus,
think of any reason we could have ever brought money in, I guess for shirts or something, but
the only other real source of income has only ever been the holiday party, which solely relies on our membership to buy raffle tickets pretty much. So
Yeah, that's literally it. There was one random donation from Apple. I don't know. I asked Josh about it, and Josh was like, I don't even know what that is. It was like
Raise
100.
fundraisers at like the Mad River.
Yeah,
fundraising,
exactly.
Nonprofit type of things. We've done that.
Yeah.
That was incoming revenue. We've got tip jars at.
Right. Okay, so yeah, like a pint night, that kind of.
Yeah, we've done like raffle baskets at those things. Like we do
curtain.
stuff, just not this past year because obvious reasons.
See, our model for all of this doesn't working right now. It's not going to work for, I mean, half a year more. I don't know.
Yeah. So I pulled our last financial report that we got in December of 2019. So realistically, I know, but I mean, we haven't done anything since. So 5H was, that's the one I could find in the email, at least at a quick glance. So 5H happened January, I think. I think we got a financial report.
It was February.
I don't know, Ben. Ben, when was it?
It was February.
Yeah, no, I know when 5H was, but the last digital financial report that once again, this was like a quick search, and so we're sitting at, if we add the 23 current members' dues to that, we have a total of 6,575 in the coffers as the projected current balance of our accounts right now. So that doesn't include 5H of 2020.
Come on.
I know. So if we have 23 members that re-up this year and everyone's $25, 23 times, that's 575, right? So
update.
It would be good to get a proper prior update.
Oh yeah, I agree.
A year plus ago. Once again, this is something that could have been discussed during the officers meeting instead of a general membership meeting.
If only our officers cared as much as Kenny does.
We're running at 9:11 right now. How many other agenda items do we have?
3, 4. We have 4.
4, and we're running 11 minutes behind 2 hours already.
Yeah.
This should have been discussed during the officers meeting that happened. This is why I'm frustrated.
As a long-term member of the club, I think I am validated to bring up a proposal for the nonprofit, period.
I would agree.
Say that again.
He's talking
you
about
mean the designation of the donation
right,
to a specific nonprofit.
We've kind of gotten off topic here. We're still back to Peter's original request.
Motion.
I agree to Kenny's motion to discuss and vote next month.
Okay.
Well, in the meantime, as long as we've got $6,000, can we agree to give something to a couple of nonprofits?
Yeah.
At this time, Peter made a motion that we
use the money.
Peter made a motion that we do a donation. Kenny suggested that we take a look at the coffers before we do that. Peter conceded and say, yes, let's do that. So I think on next month's meeting, we will sit down, we'll know our numbers exactly. And at that time, people can attend the meeting and make suggestions on who they would like to donate to.
I agree. Ben, can you reach out to the Inc. people specifically to get an up-to-date financial report? And I would like to make that available before the meeting. So I will make that available on our, are there any objections to making that, publicly available?
We're a nonprofit. I think it's publicly available anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so there's no objection, so I'll make sure that it gets posted to the event or as an attachment to the file, to the email. Like what do you guys think is the most effective means of dissemination?
Well,
On
I think
the club's
email,
webpage.
and also I
Yeah,
need
could
the
it be
info for the
posted to the
website.
website
I'm
and-
sorry, we're all talking.
Yeah, no, you all said the same thing, the website. Okay, cool. You all said exactly the same thing. Yeah, okay, so we'll post it on the website and we'll post a link to it in the email. To say, you know, here are our current financials. Cool. Well, thanks for you know, parlaying that motion. So I'm not up on the motions right now.
I've got it.
Okay, thank you, Hans.
We still have 5 things to cover. We can go over them pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick. Okay, so what's the first thing?
The next thing we need to cover is COVID beer, FUCC.
FUCC. Okay, so the FUCC beers, we had 8 brewers pick up ingredients. Then, wait, yeah, we had 8 brewers pick up ingredients. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did not get those 8 brewers. So, we had Caitlin, Kenny.
Posted in the notes in the last meeting.
Okay, you said who exactly it was.
I believe so.
Okay. Did you reach out to them to see if they? No.
No.
Okay. Okay, we should have just tagged them in a post. Kenny, is that a yes? I have ingredients, or you got a question?
That's in the 4+ months we've been discussing this, there's not been a single Facebook post or email communication from the board to the participants as far as what's going on, when these things are due, et cetera, so on and so forth. So
yeah, I mean, from the start, it was kind of like an ingredient kind of giveaway. And then from there, it transformed into a, hey, let's make it into a beer swap and a feedback fest, so to speak. And then it transformed into a let's do a best of show, so to speak. And if people want, yeah,
I
Caitlin.
was really surprised to see that it was going to be tasted in next month's meeting. I didn't think we ever talked about tasting it in a meeting. I thought that was supposed to be kind of a side thing.
I don't really know. I mean,
that's
it
because
seems like
there's
all
not
of our discussions don't really, you know.
There's not been clear
And-
communication from the board as to what the FUCC is, what's going on, what's being, so unfortunately, there was a lack of communication. So there's a lot of different ideas. I had no idea until Hans posted those officer meeting minutes that we were supposed to be due by the 17th of this month. Nobody knew that. There's been no communication. What do you guys want us to do if you guys don't tell us when stuff is supposed to be done?
Yeah, I don't know. So I feel like we should reach out to the people who picked up ingredients and see if they have brewed a beer. I could have swore we talked at the last meeting regarding the FUCC beer.
You know, I'm one
Oh.
of them, and honestly, I don't really remember the channel that we were communicating on. I have a feeling it was Facebook related, but I don't know that for sure. And I did brew. I got ingredients and brewed a beer. I don't remember how the communication went down, but
I
it
know we talked
it
about
wasn't a
it
lot.
in a meeting a few months ago, but there hasn't been anything outside of a meeting, I don't think. I got my ingredients and I brewed my beer, and then I wasn't paying super close attention to it and finally realized that it had stalled out. So I'm behind on the January 17th deadline that I wasn't aware of, but I'm trying to get it done.
All right.
Yeah,
so
I wasn't aware of any deadline or anything
No.
like that either. Or I think it was just, I mean, for me, it was like, oh, I finally got around to brewing it, and
yeah, that's
it's still
exactly
fermenting,
it.
and now it's done. I drank it tonight. It's good, but you know,
Nice.
that's a fluke.
Yeah, I literally just brewed mine last weekend. So yeah. So the date that came out of the officers meeting was was kind of a shot in the dark, like, maybe we can get people to do this so we can actually, you know, taste it at the February meeting, you know, kind of as an idea, not as a strict due date, which is how it came about during the officers meeting. And most of it was going to be, oh, we should, you know, tag people in a Facebook post to see how it's going, like if people brewed a beer or if they're just sitting on the ingredients kind of thing, which never ended up actually happening. So we are discussing it now.
I think, I mean, I'm just going to interject here. I think part of maybe the perception is like a huge portion of the club sort of dropped offline recently. And, you know, I mean, I'm just saying this from my personal perspective, but it seems like maybe in some board discussions, it's sort of like, well, this is pretty much the same people who show up for most of the general meetings. So what's the difference? And that's probably a really flawed way to look at it. And maybe my perception is wrong about that. But I feel like there was a little bit of that going on, maybe. And we didn't have a really systematic way to converse about this particular project.
Yeah, exactly. We have not had a consistent conversation about how it's supposed to go or how we want it to go. It's more of like shots in the dark and, you know, kind of trying to do things as much as we possibly can, but sometimes they fall flat on their face because of lack of engagement, so to speak. Now, is anyone doing less than they absolutely can? Me personally, no, I'm not doing less than I absolutely can. And you know, personally, what's going on in my life is personal, but I'm doing the best I can. And if anyone would like to step in to assist, I would welcome the effort to assist in posting things on Facebook or getting engagement or dedicating time to it. And that has kind of been my my attitude for the last 3-4 months, you know, so to speak. And I have stated this multiple times to all of the officers, all of the members. If you want to do something, hey, step in and do something, because the amount of traction that I have for getting things going is, you know, the 6-7 of us that are frequently here. Kenny.
I'm not quite sure. I think Christina actually had her hand up just before mine, so I yield the talk to Christina.
She said nah.
No.
Go ahead.
The fact of the matter is, you know, yeah, we're all dealing with tough situations. Shit is crazy right now. I appreciate the fact that folks are willing to recognize that they are overwhelmed and that they may need help. But the first thing is you have to ask for that help as well. There's been a consistent lack of communication from the board for a while. I love you guys. You guys are my friends and my family. You guys are the ones that keep me sane, other than this one here and the cat that you see roaming around. I care about you guys. I care about what has become of this club over the last 10 years when Josh and Jamie and folks like shit, I can't even remember, like John Steen and, you know, Sean Wilson and whoever. Like there's been a continually built things that haven't been done before. You guys have an opportunity to take this into a different level and a different situation and try to adjust and pivot to what we have now. We keep each other sane by talking to each other and by brewing beer and having fun. I think there could be, you know, more involvement, not just from the board, from general membership, but also it'd be awesome to see us doing something for the community, such as donating to another nonprofit organization. But we have you guys as the board are stewards, you're fiduciaries of this nonprofit organization. You have a obligation and responsibility to keep this thing moving forward. If you say that you can't do the job, just say, hey, I can't do the job, I need help. Ask help from the 7 other board members that are there to help you. If the 7 other board members can't pick up that slack, there are other people that can pick up that slack. But we all need to do this together. The only way we can keep this club going is if we give a shit, period. You guys signed up to be voted in members of a board of directors of a nonprofit organization. We look up to you for the leadership. Please continue what's been built over the last 10 years and make this club move forward. Involve new membership, involve the community, do whatever you guys have to do. I know you guys have families, you guys have jobs. We all have other obligations, but you guys accepted this role. It is your responsibility to move this club forward. And I will help in any way I can. You guys just need to do it and help this club move forward.
So the FUCC beer, how many people in here have FUCC ingredients and a beer that's either fermenting or done? Just out of curiosity, raise your hand if you have those. If it's fermenting or done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6 out of the 8 that picked them up, you know, that's pretty good in my opinion. So out of the people who have, out of those 6, is anyone not going to be done and packaged, or is there any way that it won't be done and packaged? Let me look at a calendar. Oh shit, it's the 7th.
Can we just pick someone to coordinate it, like right now, and then organize it online?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Ben, are you volunteering? Oh, Christina.
Oh, Christina?
Yeah, all right, Christina.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
How many what I presume bottles are we talking about?
We wanted to do as many bottles as there are people swapping. So 8 bottles. 8 bottles to swap. 1 including yourself, so you can be a blind.
Okay, totally doable.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina, for taking that on. Can you post it on Facebook in terms of like, hey, what date can everyone be packaged and ready? Is it unrealistic to have it done by next meeting? As a question. Awesome, thank you. And then we should also have the discussion online about if people want to have a best of show. I mean, if we'll have a tasting during the meeting to award a best of show, you know, a vote on which one's best.
I don't like the idea of doing that if not everybody in the club's got one of those beers.
Also, it could take up a lot of time to try and taste 8 different beers during a scheduled meeting.
Yeah, good point.
That wasn't the original idea.
Good point. Christina?
I was kind of thinking if we use the regular sort of judging forms that we've used in the past, and everybody could sort of taste at their leisure, and then maybe we can share notes at the next meeting after we've sort of compiled all the data and everybody's individual feelings, inspirations while tasting.
What do y'all think?
I couldn't hear all the way. Was it like everybody submits feedback and somebody compiles it and shares it type of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that could be interesting to hear back.
Okay.
I just couldn't hear y'all. The rain on the skylight's making it hard to hear.
Sorry, it's probably the rain here too.
Yeah, I like the idea of giving feedback.
I think she was also suggesting the use of the standardized forms, judging sheet.
Okay.
And also
Oops. No, you're good.
Also, if, you know, I can put out there, if some people don't feel comfortable with sharing that or having that feedback, we can create that option in there as well.
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be compulsory. I think most of us would probably just be, overjoyed to share our beer with people and get beer from other people. And I'm hoping that this will just, open the floodgates of like a library. I mean, where we just, have a central location to swap beers, so to speak.
So maybe we simplify and just do that.
Yeah, let's just simplify and do that.
Having it have to be feedback related.
Keep
I don't
it
know,
simple.
just an idea.
Well,
I'm getting kind of tired,
like
so I'm like.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a contest. Yeah.
Agreed.
But just my 2 cents, I would like to submit something and get feedback. I really learned from that process and value your guys' opinions, expertise. So I would personally like that. I don't know if others feel the same way.
I do feel the same way. I that's part of the value. Actually, most of the value for me for being in a contest is getting those judging sheets back. Whether or not I won an award, I mean, oh, I got a ribbon, cool, whatever. But it's those judging sheets, getting those back, especially if it's judged by people who actually know what they're talking about, even a little, it's really helpful.
I think it's also helpful to learn how to taste beer.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just shuttle this along. I agree. We should probably just do it as an at-will assessment or judgment on the quick forms. I do want to include the quick forms. So Hans, do you have the ability to photocopy things?
Yep.
Okay. Are you comfortable doing that for the 8x8 or
Yeah.
8x7? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
no problems.
Cool. All right. That thing's done. Let's talk about, I know it's super hella fucking late. It's hella late. I'm sorry for dragging this on.
Well, we probably push off a couple things and
Not really. I mean, Homebrewer of the Year is a freaking bummer, and 5H not being, possible is a freaking bummer. But I mean, in all honesty, the only thing we've done, the only, homebrewer related thing that has fruited beer has been Dustin's beer.
And Nancy's.
Yeah.
What's left on the agenda?
So we still have a future meeting, Iron Brewer, Home Brewer of the Year, 5H, and Happy Hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5H is not going to happen.
5H is canceled.
And
obviously, I just wanted to make sure that's on record.
Wait.
What about tentatively Christmas in July?
Hold on, Drew. Let's talk about this later.
Before we get on ourselves, do we all agree about the 5H? Kenny has
5H is functionally canceled.
Okay, so we're all agreed, no 5H, yes?
Yes.
Everybody nod their heads, yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Next day, Happy Hour.
Okay, so the next thing about Happy Hour. Happy Hour was attended usually by 3 people, and most of the time I did a shit job of promoting it to people further than a day in advance. I finally got it on our recurring calendar, so now it's on Google Calendar, and yeah, I just don't have time for it. What?
Did you just say Happy Hour is now reinstalled on the Google Calendar, which means it's a regular event again? Chris, did I hear that correct?
No, I said it was on our Google Calendar because I finally figured out how to recur it. So that would fix the lack of foresight, so to speak. It has been removed from the calendar because someone needs to be here to start it. So
have different dates been explored at all? It always almost winds up being the Monday right after our meeting, which seems really close.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been discussed. So I wish our PR person was still here.
So to my understanding, the Happy Hour was created to engage club members and potential general public folks into just a discussion about not club related stuff, not a club related agenda. Just, hey, it's Monday night. Let's all hang out, drink a beer, a wine, cider, mead, whatever the hell your poison is, and just shoot the shit. It was created to encourage engagement from general club members. Is that correct?
Correct. And that was my initial, want to do it. And as the engagement was limited, it discouraged me. So I don't feel like doing it anymore. So I'm wondering if anyone else wants to step in to start the meeting and run it. Because last month I canceled it because I was just out of steam. Yes, Hans.
If that's the case, we'll need a motion from somebody within the group who would like to continue and take this up. Does anybody want to make a
Thank you,
motion
Hans.
on continuing this and running it?
Membership or officers are totally allowed.
Anybody, any standing member can make a motion within the group saying they would like to take over the happy hour and promote it on the website.
I will take over that.
You want to take that over? Sure. Christina's made a motion that she would like to take over happy hour and set it up. Is everybody okay with that?
Do we have a second?
Second. Anybody second it?
Second.
Yeah.
Kenny is second, and motion's made and seconded. All in
All
favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Hearing none, motion's passed. We'll have happy hour again. Christina will set up a date and time on Facebook on when to have it set up.
It's the only way that we can keep each other sane. Seriously.
Thank
I love
you.
you guys, but I miss having a beer with you guys outside of these digital environs. So this is what we have, and I'm grateful for the board to promote this. Thank you very much.
Sean, we hear you, man.
I am sad to announce it's too late to keep me sane.
There you go.
All right, so that agenda item is taken care of. 5H we took care of. Iron Brewer, and let's just call that what it is. I would love for us to have something instead of Iron Brewer, something simpler and more straightforward during these times. The fuck beer was kind of like dipping our toe in it, and ultimately I feel like we realized it's going to need a lot more organization to go forward if we were to do something similar to Iron Brewer. So what I'm hoping is that we can take our lessons from the FUCC beer and turn that into something else. At the officers meeting, we had discussed maybe, we talked about this for maybe like 15 minutes about, maybe we should do like a miniature competition. No, maybe we should just do, a style. Let's say like there's 3 different styles to enter. And ultimately it led to like, wait, we need to keep it simple. We need to keep it simple. So what if we just set up, instead of Iron Brewer and exchanging ingredients? Yes, Hans.
We can make this pretty simple and pretty quick. Would anybody like to make a motion for a new form or version of Iron Brewer for the club?
Yeah.
If not, we can carry this over to the next meeting, and I can continue it with attach it to the next agenda.
I would like to see it pushed until we get the FUCC done at least, just because let's get through this one thing we're doing and then do the next thing like that. Because I would love to participate in something like that, but I'd like to see the last thing finished up first.
Okay, so Caitlin's made a suggestion that we move this to the next meeting and or till after FUCC is completed. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hands. Opposed? Passed and moved on to the next meeting.
Thank you, Hans, for
Let's move on to
facilitating
future
this.
meetings.
How are you doing this after a 10%er? Okay, future meetings. Well, no, Homebrewer of the Year.
Drink the other
Homebrewer
beer.
of the Year. Homebrewer of the Year.
Homebrewer of the Year?
Yes, so Homebrewer of the Year we need to talk about because it is now the year and we have not talked about Homebrewer of the Year at all. I would, propose that someone propose a motion to parlay or delay Homebrewer of the Year until we can define
I propose that
I don't know,
given
what's all your
the
opinions on
pandemic
this?
conditions we have endured for 10 months, that we postpone voting on Homebrewer of the Year until we have time to discuss such details.
I'm sorry, Peter, your motion is to delay,
I'm proposing that we delay voting on Homebrewer of the Year until we have time to discuss details on what that means, given 10 months of a pandemic.
right. Open for discussion.
I mean, we could still recognize people, right? We've gotten to taste a few beers. We could do some sort of online voting or something, right?
I'm almost for just even suspending it for 2020.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Well, before we do that, we'll have
Or
to,
how about we're all homebrewers of the year? If you brewed at home this year, you're a homebrewer of the year.
No doubt, Mike.
Kenny.
I would like to say I'm a slight bit disappointed in the potential cancellation of Homebrewer of the Year. It is the one time of the year that club members get an opportunity to recognize one of their own for whatever reasons. I
Okay.
absolutely agree, as I did the last year and the year before when it was mentioned that there's no qualifications to Homebrewer of the Year, that there should be some some sort of rules, regulations, qualifications set out for Homebrewer of the Year.
Okay.
With that being said, I'm sorry that the board has decided to potentially cancel this year's, but if it does happen, I would like to make a motion to nominate both Nancy Knoll and Dave Breyer as Homebrewer of the Year. I think we should recognize what both of them have done, not only for the club, but our homebrewing community around here, and they both should be recognized. Nancy brewed fantastic beers, not recently with Six Rivers, and Dave Breyer has been teaching his daughters this craft, this art, this hobby, this thing that we do. So if we're going to do it, we should do it right and nominate folks that have actually been proving themselves through the pandemic, regardless of COVID. It does not matter whether COVID has happened or not. These folks have been doing something to promote what we're doing. And I make a motion that if the board decides to do Homebrewer of the Year, that one of the nominations should include both Nancy Knoll and Dave Breyer.
Okay.
Well, I think if we have nominations, then it's an easy decision to just do it, right?
Not necessarily. Right now, we've got two motions on the floor. We have Peter's motion that we delay, and we have Kenny's motion that we have two nominations. So we've technically got two motions on the floor right now. We can put it up to a vote on the group Facebook page. Maybe we can say to the group, do we want to continue with delaying this for, what was your time period, Peter?
My proposal was to delay it a month because we already agreed to not have 5H,
Okay.
which has been the venue for announcing the Homebrewer of the Year. So I was simply proposing that we delay voting until we have time to discuss and make nominations. There have now been nominations, and I'm fine with that proposal. We can make nominations, we can put voting up online.
I was gonna
And
say,
they
we
can-
could put up a voting online thing. So if Kenny, if you're okay with that,
That is
maybe
a
the motion,
viable solution.
maybe the motion can be that we will delay voting until after next meeting, in which we will have submittal of, somebody help me here.
I don't think I don't necessarily know that we need to put qualifications, but what inspires Homebrewer of the Year in the past would be a good,
But
So
I think the digital voting platform has been proven before. If we can vote for officers for the board, we can vote for Homebrewer of the Year. And I think these people deserve recognition for what they've done, for not only our recognition for our homebrew club, but recognition for the hobby and passion for what they do. And I absolutely stand behind anything that either of those brewers do. And I really hope that the board decides to reinstate Homebrewer of the Year after the cancellation.
Matt, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to like piggyback on what Kenny's saying. Like you're supporting the voting system that we did for membership when you were the only person that called bullshit on it when we voted for board members, saying it was non-anonymous. So I'd like to, just understand a little bit about how it's okay for this, but not okay for that.
I did not say it wasn't anonymous. I simply asked the question of how it will be anonymized. Anonymized? Golly,
Yes,
man, it's
again.
almost 10 o'clock
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah, tell me
The
about
fact of the matter is, like, I don't think anybody is trying to skew these votes or anything. But we have to kind of set a precedent, set an example that, these numbers, somebody's name can be transitioned into a number, no problem. Just, but Homebrewer of the Year should be voted on by the club, not the board. And the board
for sure.
effectively took that motion away from the general membership to recognize one of their own, and that's not acceptable.
Well, I just want to
What?
be clear
I don't
on
think
whether
we
or
did.
not, like,
I don't ever see we doing that.
We never motioned for that. I'm sorry if you misunderstood that.
In the notes that were released, it said canceled. No context, no nothing.
That could have been
So
my.
without explanation or context, you tell me.
Oh,
you
is that
can always
because
assume the worst, or you can assume the best. You know what I mean? Like, you
I'm
don't always
not.
have to
I'm not
assume the
assuming
worst.
the worst. There's just a lack of information.
I know, but
Okay.
that's so I'm saying. This
All
club has often.
All this can be discussed at some point later. It's almost 10 o'clock, man.
Sure,
Are we
sure.
done with this? Like this, all this stuff should have been discussed during the board members meeting.
No, we have no power in the board members meeting. It's up to a membership vote. That's the
Then
whole
why
matter
does it
of this.
say in
We
the
talk
minutes
about
that-
at the officers meeting what we should talk about at the members meeting, and then at the members meeting is where we vote on things. Like that's always how it's been.
Okay.
You know?
Well, I maybe I'm wrong. And I apologize for being so passionate. I will step away from any future conversations regarding this. You guys are our leadership. I will trust what you guys are doing. And
Thanks. Thank you, Hans, for facilitating the motions. So going back to the motions that are on the table right now, we have Pete's motion to delay until next month the discussion of Homebrewer of the Month. Let's take that one since that was on the table. All of those in favor, sorry, is my verbiage correct in delaying?
Well, I don't, yeah, there was a minute ago, it was like, oh, there's two motions, and I don't think there are two motions. There's a motion by Pete, and then there was nomination. So I think those are two different things.
Yeah, technically they're two different things, but the first thing is first. Peter's motion to delay it for one month meeting, and then we can go on to the next conversation.
So all those in favor of delaying the discussion, is that correct? The discussion or the decision of the delay? Pete, would you like to clarify?
My intent was there allow discussion over the next month.
Okay, so Pete, can you make a clear motion?
Is it you were delaying the vote for Homebrewer of the Year?
Not delaying the discussion, delaying the vote for a month.
Okay, do we have any seconds for delaying the vote of Homebrewer of the Year until next month?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor? Wait, we need a third? No, just seconded. Okay, all those in favor of delaying the vote until next month's meeting?
That doesn't count.
Okay, all those Opposed? Nay? Or a down, thumbs down? All right, passed unanimously.
Okay, and now we have a pretty immediate nomination that we can sit on for that time.
So voting is different than nominating. So I would say that nominations do not need a second. So
They do
all nominations are standing with one person, and just as personal opinion, I highly agree with both of those nominations, Nancy and Drew. I mean,
So I'm gonna put this in
Dave,
notes.
sorry.
Kenny, you've nominated Nancy and who?
Dave Breyer.
Breyer.
Yeah, I highly agree on both of those. And I believe,
Myself as well.
what was that? Okay. And Pete nominated himself as well. What was that? No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm agreeing with those nominations.
Have we accomplished allowing other people to make nominations and give them time? Have we been
Yes.
clear about this? I think we have now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
if anybody
now,
makes a nomination right now for whoever you name, then I'll post this information up on the Facebook page and people will have time to discuss, at which time the next meeting, based on Peter's original motion, we can all then vote on who we want to have for Brewer of the Year.
Okay, in the meantime, I can nominate someone none of you like, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
As long as they're a standing member.
as long as they're a standing member. Yeah. Okay, so I will post
so
guidelines.
The winner has to be a dues paying member of the club. Is that true?
Well, we need to outline these guidelines because they're not
Oh.
technically on books, technically.
They have to have been an active member up through December.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
Okay, so
the
for
last
right
I might be wrong on that, but that's my interpretation.
So for right now, we only have nominated for Nancy and Dave for Brewer of the Year at this time. Is that correct from everybody?
Correct.
Does
And
anybody
can you-
wish to nominate anybody else? I'm gonna ask it one more time. Does anybody want to
Going once.
nominate anybody else?
Nope.
Going twice. All right.
Okay,
Nominations
we're
are
moving on.
all right. Can you also please note in the notes that Chris needs to post a Facebook post for nominations with a way to anonymously nominate.
A way to nominate without saying who you nominated, who nominated?
Correct.
Anonymously?
Just post it. Yeah, just
God, that hurts my
say
thinkhole.
Chris needs to post. Jeez Louise. Okay. Well, future meetings. Did we schedule a future officers meeting? No, I don't think we did.
No, we have not.
Okay.
Is that for future meetings? Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, we're on to future meetings. We're past Homebrewer of the Year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, future meetings, open for discussion.
Well, we definitely have next month, February. Let me look at that date really quick. Oh my God, my bladder's gonna burst. The 4th, February 4th.
This is the regular meeting or is this for officers?
Regular meeting, general meeting, January 4th,
General.
7 p.m. via Zoom.
We apparently have Jared on the schedule for February.
Pete,
sorry,
can you
who's on-
please
who's on
check
schedule?
in with him?
Jared from
From where?
Jippo L Mill.
will be our guest speaker. Beyond that, we have no buddy lined up.
Correct. Oh, okay. Officers meeting has yet to be decided. It will be announced publicly and put on the public Google Calendar with a link to the meeting once the future officers meeting is announced. We will work that out in the officers Facebook page to get a suitable date. All right, if there is nothing else, I would like to adjourn this meeting.
We got one last thing.
No, better be me pissing into a toilet.
Yeah, Iron Brewer. We haven't talked about it.
I'd like to make a motion that Chris goes to the bathroom.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Second that.
Yeah, it's like
I second. Oh, I promise it's not a number 2.
I'm sorry. Iron Brew is already taken care of. We talked about it. We're going to move it to the next meeting and or
Yeah.
until the PCC is over. And that was seconded by Benjamin. So
Thank you.
we are at the end of the meeting. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, raise your hand. All right, get the fuck out of here.
All right, but first I need to thank Dustin. Thank you, Dustin, for being here and sharing all your beers. My God, thank you.
And you stayed through the whole meeting.
I know.
Seriously.
Masochist.
Toasted.
Thank you, everybody, for your input and your
Thank you,
assistance.
Dustin.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate
I
it.
reiterate this. I still, this was the best online meeting this club has had.
Thank you, Hans, for facilitating because I am checked out. I should not have drank that 10%er. Like